Hello, my name is Dr. Stephen Go. I'm the Vice President of Australasian Association for Engineering Education, and I will be coordinating the 2022 A2E Engineering Education Grants for this year. This recording is basically a short briefing on the grants process, the criteria, and some of the logistics and tips around how to apply for this grant. I'll just start off by, if you're looking at the documentation here, there are a few important um, um, files that you should be looking to guide you in writing your application. Firstly is this particular guideline for the grants. It does provide some introduction on the purpose of the association, and from there, I guess the aims of the grant program. Uh, and it does specify that it does allow time limit release from normal academic duties to undertake a range of scholarly research and dissemination activity. And I would suggest that there will be a $1,000. Just if you read through the rest of the documentation, you'll probably find the clause that suggests that up to $1,000 should be budgeted for attending and presenting at the A2E annual conference. Um, the nature of the project activities, uh, there will be at least up to two projects that will be funded up to $20,000 per project that should be aligned to ACAD's Engineering Futures 2035 report, looking at the scoping study of what would be a engineering graduate look like at the year 2035. So it's a very forward document. So with that, you should be also looking at this particular document, uh, the AK report, Engineering Futures 2035. So there's some forward, there's some executive summary. You should have a look at that, what that looks like, and then um, looking at the executive summary. But the most important aspects of, if you're not keen on reading all 87 pages of this report, the recommendation should be compulsory, compulsory reading here. So um, there's some recommendation around engineering education program. There's graduates' knowledge, skills, attributes. If you look to some of the, I would say, suggestions for curriculum reformation or renewal, uh, there's a suggestion that we should be teaching more liberal arts because of the fact that I think the 2035 engineers should be more human centric in their practice, engineering practice. There should be more uh, engineering practice being taught in the classroom versus just relying on our uh, traditional um, curriculum of teaching engineering sciences. So there's also suggestion around embedding more cross-disciplinary and cross-institutional and industry and community engagement in the programs. So there's some really good ideas around what uh, would be the new program that looks like that would look like. Um, and another important aspect of 2035 is looking to how do we train the trainers of engineering students in the future. So academic development or professional development for academics is an important part. How do we train the engineering educators for the future? So there's some aspects of that that should be looked at. Um, should we engage practitioners who are engaged with students in innovation, entrepreneurship, design, and so on? And there's other recommendation that you should have a look at those. I mean, some of the work that's been done so far is very much something that's for AK to continue fund and do, but on the front line of engineering teaching, we should be doing a lot more to look to deliver some core outcomes that is aligned to this particular report. So this report is it's an important document that you should look to, and let's get back to the grant process document here. So up to 2 projects will be funded, up to $20,000. Last year's process, we actually funded 3 projects. 2 projects funded to up to $20,000, and then there's a third ACAD aligned project that's funded up to $10,000, and then there's also a ASEAN. So that stands for Australian Collaborative Education Network Limited. So it's a professional association for practitioners and researchers from the tertiary education sector, industry and community involved with work integrated learning. So up to 1 project is aligned with the priorities of ASEAN will be funded up to maximum of $10,000. So last year we actually funded $60,000 worth of projects. So not just 3 projects, but actually 4. 3 ACAD aligned, so 2035 Engineering Futures aligned projects. There's 3 of them last year's, and then 1 that is work integrated focus. So one of the things suggestion from last year, look for this year, is that we actually had 15 applications, of which majority was aligned with ACAD. So they want the $20,000 grant, right? So there weren't that many for ASEAN aligned projects. So if you're strategic, you probably want to have a decent look at ASEAN, even if your project is closely aligned with ACAD 2035. So you can actually try to position yourself, particularly if your projects just require up to $10,000, to both look to deliver some of the outcomes for 2035, but also work integrated learning aligned as well. So that's some tips there. Some of the grant funding objectives is basically we want to identify frontline issues that we can solve, whether that's working within or cross disciplines, facilitate an approach to address a learning and teaching issue, or show leadership, promoting and enhancing engineering education, whether that's within your home institution, and I would suggest also with multiple institutions. Establish national partnership in engineering education across institution. Setting up with that, there was one idea that was recently proposed, was to set up a community of practice looking to deliver concrete outcomes for the 2035 report there. So and foster a network and dissemination of projects outcome within the A Square community and wider engineering education community as well. So anyway, it should be within 6 to 12 months, the project. It's not a lot of money. So $20,000, it's not a lot of money for ACAD, and $10,000 even less for work integrated learning projects. Eligibility. So very, very important facts here. In terms of criteria, if you are an associate professor or professor, you probably this grant program is not designed for you guys. It's meant for early career to mid-career academics. So specify early career or mid-career academics that are engaged in scholarly practice or engineering education research in higher education or equivalent in Australia and in New Zealand. Applicants will have some demonstrated expertise in scholarship in a relevant field to the proposed project activity. So you should have some expertise or publications or some track record. Not this is not an ARC uh, application, so it's we're probably not as rigorous in that respect. Okay, so but you should have some record of track record or some recognition in the area that you're going to undertake a project. So criteria. So the first criteria, capacity of the nominees to play an emerging role in a scholarly or research activity relating to engineering education. So it's about the capacity, of, to play emerging role. So you shouldn't be at that starting point. You should have a few, one or two, a couple of publication already in the area, maybe a couple of conference papers and so on, or maybe you have to undertake some scholarly work within your classroom, but you've got to expand it out a little bit more nationally now. Align with the proposed project activity and outcome with the aims of the grant. So ACAD 2035 Engineering Futures align, or ACN Work Integrated Learning align, or both. So, and last of all, endorsement and criteria of the nominee by their respective home institution. So those are the selection criteria. It's nice and simple. It's not overly onerous, but successful nominees is expected to be notified by September 2022, and project should start from 2nd of January 2023 at the latest, if not earlier. So between 6 to 12 months in length in terms of time frame, but you should start at the latest the beginning of 2023. Okay, and there's a few things around how you should have a strategy for impact. Your evaluation of your project should be how do you make sure that your project can be successful, things like that, and what kind of output and outcome and impact. So evaluation strategy should be included in your project proposal. And there's a few in terms of funds. There is one thing though, the grant funding, because it's not a lot of money. We will not be funding institutional overheads or department overheads. But there is obviously on costs associated with salary, so that should be up to 28% of of your respective salary. And so yeah, no general institutional department overheads. So we do not fund overheads. So if it's there, we'll be, even if your project is down, we'll ask you to take that cost out of your budget. So $1,000 should be looked to fund your dissemination activity at the A Square conference, and any evaluation expenses that might occur, project reporting, interim report, and then also a final report, and then a financial acquittal of all your expenditure, etc., etc. So there's a bit of a form here, a nomination cover page, institutional. So there's a bit of a format that you should be following, and budgets should be justified. Like any grant application, there should be an element of rigor there. So we're not just giving away money to anyone. So we'd like to see that you put in some thoughts, what you're going to spend your money on, and how you're going to spend it, and why you're going to spend it. So a bit of justification would be good. Okay, so that's pretty much formats there for what we're expecting for your submission, and it should be a PDF emailed to engineersaustralia.org.au with the A Square email. It says the 1st of August, as that has been extended by another 2 weeks. So we'll be looking to 15th of August as the new revised due date. So any question, you can email me or Ann Gardner, the president. So couple of things that we maybe takeaway message in terms of, or takeaway learning, sorry, from last year. Three important themes that we saw. Um, First of all, the successful applicants, they all had these three attributes in their application. Very, very strong, first of all, very, very strong institutional support, whether that's from their deans, their head of school, or associate dean for learning and teaching. They actually had a fairly um, good letter of support. And what I mean by that is it shows that the institution is supporting them in their scholarly effort, in their engineering education research. They are mentoring these academics, building up their credentials, their profile for the long term. So that's a really good attributes there. Secondly, the various institutions supporting the academics in their nomination application, sorry, had quite a substantial amount of in-kind contribution. Everywhere they go, they actually said, "Oh, we can get a few hours. Maybe 20 hours from a learning designer, another 20 hours from a mentor who was a professor or something, and maybe another 20 hours from a tutor." So wherever they can find existing bodies and hours, or they package it up so that it leverages the small amount of money that A Square is providing. They leverage out, like let's say the $20,000, it may turn out into, that the $20,000 ends up to be about 40 or 50,000 of actual expenses that's been incurred for the project. So there's a lot of in-kind support that's being provided. Sometime, and I say sometimes, some submission actually had cash contribution as well. So it actually there's work that's being done currently, or about to happen, that is aligned with the 2035, and they said, oh, as part of this grant application, they're going to spend this money along with the grant money too. So it's bang for buck. So that's what we would like to see. And the panel was very impressed by some of the institutions coming up with in-kind as well as cash contribution towards enabling them to do the project. Third thing, so the first is strong institutional support for the academic applying. Secondly, the in-kind as well as cash contribution from the institutions. And thirdly, the multi-institutional nature of the application. So that sends a message about the potential broad impact. So it's not just about one institution benefiting from the small amount of money that we're investing, right? And it's not just one academic that's benefiting. So there could be 4 or 5 academics that's benefiting. There are 4 or 5 institutions. Most times we saw 2 or 3, but it would be good to see 4 or 5 institutions benefiting from the small amount of investment they put in. So that could be 4 or 5 academics benefiting, building up their career as part of this grant program. So those are the 3 things. Just in summary: strong institutional support for the applicant, contribution, in-kind contribution, cash contribution from an institution to leverage what little money that we're providing in this grant program. And last of all, in terms of broad impact, we're probably also looking at multi-institutional applications. So it does not exclude a good application from 1 or 2 institutions, but we'd like to see broad impact being evident, in some of the prospective application. So those were the attributes of the last year's successful applicants. One of the things that a question has arisen around, um, what if, previous year's successful applicants reapply? Can we, you know, leverage up? So whatever findings that we had, we're going to build on what we've done and scale up. I would say, as part of advice, particularly from a panel. So the makeup of a panel, there has to be a few representatives from A Square, as well as ACAD. So there will be a ACAD rep there as well. So one of the feedback that we as part of the deliberation between the panelists, all right. So it's is the fact that we probably don't want to see the same project scaled up into a bigger project, because if it's a really good project, if it's delivering really good outcome, institutions should be funding it, not A Square. So we're the C funding, right? We test out the water. We're supporting our frontline academics, early career and mid career, to have a footing into, I guess, grant writing and grant application process, and provide avenue where they can do some research and publish. If it's really, if the project is successful and it needs to be scaled up, the rationale here is that we're probably not the best funding source. You should be looking to various institutions to fund those scaled up projects. And I guess one of the things also in this second phase, last year we had our first round. This second round, we're probably looking to more focus areas such as academic development, human-centric engineering, and looking to how do we go forward, some really concrete way, how do we actually make things happen, not just individual projects, but uh, um, making sure that we do have real change in our curriculum and how we deliver it, and our program design, and looking for this 2035 graduate, in how we can actually make it happen, really. So I think that's about it. We're about 23 minutes into this briefing. So I think I'll just offer my email address, which is stephen.go. stephen.go@usq.edu.au. If you've got any further question, please note that the due date has been extended to the 15th of August, and we very much look forward to receiving your applications in days to come.